Hello again, I'm Bob Colt. We're continuing our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools, and you may know the principal of Charlotte High, Bill Barnes. We've talked to you many times before. A lot of people might not know that you're Employee of the Month, so let's get it out of the way quickly.
Yes.
And what a great honor.
Absolutely. And I was very happy to be nominated. Kathy Stoll, one of our special education teachers, nominated me, and I appreciated that nomination very much.
So a lot of people, Bill, don't know what a principal does, and I think we've talked about things, but we haven't really talked about the job of a principal. Tell people what you do.
Well, it's never a dull moment. One of the things that I learned very quickly is how fast you have to change hats. And you do that really from 1 minute to the next. For example, I may be meeting with a parent and a student, and then in the next minute I'm meeting with a teacher about a curriculum issue, and then the next minute I'm going to do an observation of a teacher, and then in the meantime I'm answering emails or signing off on budget transfers or all kinds of different things.
And all that time your wife thinks your feet are on the desk, just relaxing.
That's right.
And you have to tell her what you do every day.
Exactly. And she's a teacher herself in Grand Ledge, but she's convinced that I spend part of my day with my feet on my desk.
So your job, really, you oftentimes you don't know what you will end up doing in a day. You know some things that you'll achieve based on a schedule, but I would imagine it's kind of like a hockey goalie where you're just blocking shots constantly.
Well, it is. I have a couple different systems for keeping track of that. I have a digital planner that I use, a Google Calendar, that tells me where I have to be. So meetings, observations, appointments, all those things are in that calendar. So every day when I get to school, the first thing I do is pull up my calendar so I make sure that I know where I'm supposed to be and when throughout the day. And then I also have a paper planner that I use where I keep a running list of things that have to get done. So oftentimes those things will correspond with one of the meetings or one of the events I have to be to. But sometimes, the list will roll over from week to week to week to week, and I'll get those things done when I can. But I find that making the list and then crossing things off as I finish them and carrying them over to the next week helps keep me organized as to what I need to get done, and then having that digital calendar make sure that I always end up where I'm supposed to end up.
Does a principal of a high school kind of think in terms of a calendar? You're always looking about what day it is and who has what planned, and they're probably a lot like, not to use another analogy, but there are a lot of planets in the universe kind of revolving around, and you have to keep track of all of that.
Well, I do, and that's where having a great staff comes into play, because I can count on the people around me to be doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing, so I don't have to worry about those things. I also have a wonderful assistant in Becky Frazier, and I know she's been an Employee of the Month, and she talked to you guys a couple months ago, and she helps make sure that everything is running smoothly as well. It's really about having the right people in the right spots to get the job done.
And so how much does a principal get involved in curriculum issues then?
Well, it's really putting the experts in the position to make the determinations about what the curriculum should be and helping to provide guidance and support. We're in the midst of a changeover in standards from the old high school content expectations to Common Core, and so providing resources and guidance and time for staff to work through that to determine what they need to be teaching. So I oversee that curriculum development, but the actual curriculum work is done by the individual departments with the guidance of the department chairs.
Do you wish you had more time for planning?
It's an interesting balance, because I do get some time. I can eke out time during the day where I can sit and look at what I need to get done and how I need to get it done and make those plans, and I'm appreciative of that time. The difference is that I don't have a 2-hour block of time. Nobody does in schools. And so it may be 15 minutes here where I can look over what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and then it's another half an hour here. I also use a lot of time after school to do those things, after the kids have left, because I talked about my appointments in my plan book, but the most important part of my job is the kids. And so I want to spend the time when they're here working with them, interacting with them, doing walkthroughs, popping in and out of classrooms, and really interacting with the people in the school, because that's what our business is, that's what we're about.
And a principal is working every day, even when the kids are not in school.
Yes, yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't know. I work all summer, actually. I'm here in the middle of July, and I'm here all by myself, but that's a great opportunity to get things done and to plan for the year ahead. So when you talk about that planning time, I do a lot of the professional development work, I do a lot of the data analysis work over the summer when I have long blocks of time where I'm not going to meetings and I'm not interrupted and I'm not doing other things. So I may spend 2 weeks solid working on data sets for the teachers, but I have that time in the summer to do that.
Well, tell me about your own career planning. Did you ever say, gosh, I really want to be a principal?
I did. When I came out of my undergraduate work at Western, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I also knew that the next step for me was to be a principal. I always saw as a teacher, you have a huge impact on your classrooms full of teachers. As your classroom full of kids. I was a coach, and so I had a very pointed impact on those groups of kids. But I was always intrigued by the idea of spheres of influence, and I wanted to continue to expand my spheres of influence. And I saw building level administration as a spot where I could do that. I still get to work with the teachers, I still get to work with the kids, but I really have an opportunity to impact all 850 of the kids in our school.
And so talk a little bit about your career path, how you actually got here to be principal.
Okay. Well, I started my career, my first teaching job was at Eastern High School in Lansing, and I was there for about a semester, and then they had some budget issues, and I was going to end up getting laid off, and so luckily the job opened here, and so I interviewed and I got it, and I came here to teach English halfway through the year, and I taught English and math for 4 years, and then I spent 2 years spending half my time at the middle school as a writing coach, and then half my time at the high school. One of those years it was working in the guidance office, coordinating standardized tests and scholarships and some of those things, and then one of those years was as the intervention coordinator. This is my third year then as the principal, so it just worked out that Mr. Wheaton retired, and I had the qualifications and was able to interview and land in this role. So.
It really is a kind of an amazing, fast career path that you've been on.
Well, I've been very lucky to have the right opportunities come along at the right time, and lots of great guidance from people that came before me, and a great team to work with. So it was a lot of luck that put me in the right position at the right time to have the opportunity to do this.
So what makes a good principal?
Well, I think first of all, building relationships. That's with kids, that's with teachers, that's with community members, that's with parents, that's with everybody. That you can't lead an organization if you don't have good relationships with the people in that organization. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is having some knowledge of some leadership theory, and having knowledge of curriculum, and having knowledge of instruction, and being able to convey that knowledge and work with folks to get that across. But I think the biggest thing is the ability to build relationships within your organization, and then to have some knowledge around which you can build those relationships.
You're really supporting all of the teachers and the staff. I mean, oftentimes you probably solve problems every day. Mm-hmm. That's a job.
It is. It's a big part of the job.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are problems that I can just solve by myself and just take care of it. And more often than not, though, there are problems that have to be solved by groups of people. Yeah. And so one of the things that I've really had to learn how to do in this role is how to get groups of people around problems to solve them and to tackle them, because you don't really move an organization forward if you just sit in your office and try to solve all the problems of the world by yourself. First of all, you probably solve them in the wrong way, and second of all, it's very difficult to build consensus and to build trust and to do all those things that you need to do to have a successful organization.
And some of this stuff, the challenges that come up for a principal, are not in a book anywhere. You have to be creative.
Absolutely, most of them aren't in a book. There are books written on the subject, but a lot of them aren't. And there has to be a certain level of confidence in the learning that I have done. I got my master's degree from Michigan State and went through a tremendous program there that dealt very heavily with systems thinking. So, what elements make up a system like a school, and then how to leverage those elements to make sure that the system is working properly. So I had a great deal of instruction there and some wonderful professors that gave me a framework. And then right now I'm 2 years into an ed leadership doctorate at Michigan State as well. So having some of that theory and those professors and really the people in my cohort, it's a cohort program. I give a ton of the credit for the learning that I've done to those people who are administrators in various districts around the state. And so that foundation of knowledge helps. But then on a day-to-day basis, I mean, there's no book that said this kid walks into your office, this is what you do.
Yeah.
It really depends on using that base level of knowledge and to make some decisions and to bring other people in as appropriate. I have a wonderful assistant principal, Sheree Burdick, and we work very closely together. And there are many, many times where either she walks into my office or I walk into her office and say, "Hey, this popped up. What are we going to do about this?"
Yeah. So there are pop-up situations. It's like being a goalie. So that happens, but probably a lot of people didn't know that you were pursuing this additional graduate education while you're being a principal. That's a challenge.
Well, it is, but I think it's important. We stress to our kids how important education is, obviously, and so I think leading by example is something that a leader is supposed to do. And for me, it's just I feel like I didn't know enough. I needed to learn more. I needed some more knowledge in that area, and I really honestly like school. I like going to school. I like being in college classes. I like the camaraderie you have with the folks in a cohort, and I like the learning that takes place. So, when I thought after my master's what I wanted to do next, ed specialist was an option for me, and then obviously a PhD. But one of the great things about this program I'm in is that it is a doctorate, but it is not research focused, it's practical focused. So that separates the EDD from the PhD.
So you don't have to generate any new knowledge or research anything out there. You can really look at practical experience and share some of the things that you're learning in Charlotta's principal.
Exactly. And the idea behind the program is to take the research that's been that is sort of out there in the ether, and make it into something that's usable and something that you can implement and use in real school buildings. And that was very attractive to me. I never really had much interest in doing my own research, but I have a great deal of interest in taking the research that's out there and using it to make organizations, and my organization here in particular, function better and work better and to do the things that we need to do to continually improve.
Well, and I want to make sure people understand, because when you're in a graduate program at a university and you actually are working toward a doctorate degree, the research and publishing pressure of that and the academic scrutiny is really broad. But if you can take your knowledge and continue it and bring all of the research in the world together directly into your job, that's really a great thing.
Yeah, it's been really nice, and the big projects and the assignments that we have done have been really geared towards my work here. So I've been able to take the learning that I've done and help use it to improve the school. I just wrapped up a project, for example, in which I did an equity audit and looked at how well we're serving certain populations of our school and in multiple areas. And so I was supported in doing that by the professors, and so I know I got a good product. And then that's something that we talked about on our support team, our intervention team, with the leadership team in the school, to get a better picture of how we're serving certain populations of students in our school.
So that's something you can share. I mean, just sharing that knowledge that you've generated and been able to produce. Where are kids today? If you're a principal, have you seen just in recent history, in this role of a couple of years, how kids are changing?
Well, I think the biggest way that kids are changing, from my perspective, is through technology. The way that kids interact with one another, the way that kids interact with adults, the way that kids interact with the world is very different than when I was in high school. You didn't have all that access, and so now kids literally have the world at their fingertips, and so they have so many opportunities to communicate and to learn and to grow. And I think we have a responsibility as schools to find ways to help them authentically engage with that technology and authentically engage with what's out there, because that's the world that they live in. And if we don't meet that need, then I think we're doing the kids a disservice.
It's not like you're really controlling it, you're just directing it.
Yeah, and providing opportunities for the learning that they're doing in the classroom to connect to that, because that's what they're doing anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that's the world they live in. They've all got a smartphone. They've all got some device. We've given them iPads. You know, the world that they live in is technology focused, and I think that's a challenge for us, is to help our instruction meet that need that they have.
Hey, I want to talk of one other topic that I think any administrator is concerned with, and it's not coming from from left field here, but any principal has to be concerned with safety of kids. What do you think about every day as kids are coming in and they're going? You're thinking about their safety all the time, aren't you?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, ultimately, in my building, I'm responsible for the safety of all of those kids, all 850 of them.
So what does that mean to a principal?
What that means to me is, number one, I have to know who my kids are. I mean, if I'm somebody, if I don't know who the 850 kids are, then it's very difficult for me to figure out if something is amiss or somebody's there that shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Number two, I need to make sure that the people in our organization understand that need for safety and that they're assets in that as well. And then it's just a matter of making sure that the rules and guidelines and procedures that we have in place are followed, are practiced, and that we have the chance and the opportunity to make sure that our school is safe. You know, we have a police liaison officer that's in our school. That's very helpful. That adds to the safety. But it goes back to relationships and knowing who's in your building, and that's from the adult perspective and the kid perspective, and helping people feel safe and valued.
So you must also have to rely on a pretty big information network that exists with your staff of teachers and employees in a building, and also all of those students.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what's happening unless somebody tells us what's happening, and so that does come from staff. It comes from students, and but that again goes back to what I said at the very beginning about the most important part of being a principal is that relationship. If you don't have a relationship with those people and they don't trust you, then you're never going to find that information out.
And that includes parents too.
That includes parents, absolutely. We get information about safety and about issues that are cropping up in school from all of those sources. Sometimes we'll get parent phone calls and say, "Hey, did you know this is going on? My student came home and told me this." Or we'll get a kid that stops in the office and said, "Hey, I heard this is going to happen at lunch and just wanted you to know." Or teachers will come down and say, "Hey, I overheard this conversation in the hallway." And so communication is absolutely essential to making sure that you're in a safe school environment.
Well, Bill, thank you again for communicating with us
Absolutely.
today. Employee of the Month, I just had to say that one more time. Bill Barnes, the principal, Charlotte High School. I'm Bob Colt. We'll continue our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools.